Hey everyone, Tactics here, and in this video I wanted to talk about routes for keys in the 0.1% title range, though this is going to be a bit different than what I've done in past seasons, where instead of doing individual videos, I'm actually going to be talking about all 8 dungeons here in one all-encompassing guide, and of course there are going to be timestamps down below so that you can jump around easily. In terms of what I'm going to be covering, we'll of course talk about tech that we've learned over the course of the first couple months of the season. We'll go over dangerous pulls, talking about how to group them up, as well as just how to generally survive them. We'll walk you through some of the more complicated skips, plus a lot more. And if you want to import any of these routes for yourself, they're all going to be linked down in the description below. Now, before getting into it, I do want to emphasize the context behind how these routes were put together. Essentially, what I did was I took a look at some of the top runs that have happened so far this season, including a lot of people that you're familiar with, various Chinese teams, people like Kira on EU servers and Yoda on NA servers, and I've kind of amalgamated and adjusted the pulls that they did to create something that is going to be a bit more consistent for your average title pusher that is not pushing for the #1 key in the world, but rather just keys that are going to get them in that 0.1%, meaning that I've actually reduced difficulty here kind of across the board in some of these polls, just in order to reduce the time that you need to spend repeating that poll to learn it and be successful, which hopefully is just going to make things easier for people that don't have time to slam keys 8 hours a day, but still want to achieve some of these higher end goals. Of course, these routes are still much more complicated than my Pug Friendly or my Keystone Legend routes. And with this aimed at getting title, I have started to relieve myself of some of the restrictions that I imposed when creating those other routes. So for example, we're going to have some pulls now, which is going to be easier with a certain comp setup. There's going to be skips that are kind of complicated or kind of difficult to execute, that kind of thing. Because of that, I will still generally not recommend using this unless you're in a coordinated group, but potentially you could get away with it in a high key pug. All right. Disclaimers now out of the way. We're done. Let's get into the routes. And I believe we're going to be starting with one of the more diverse dungeons in the pool, Priory of the Sacred Flame. And so there's a ton of different ways to pull this dungeon. One thing I am ignoring, I think as of this week, they fixed the bug where you could like kill this boss without killing mini bosses. And get the count for the mini bosses still. I'm assuming that's fixed. And so we're getting into the first pull here, and you'll notice something where we pull 0 knights. This is a 0 knight route. It's very, very nice for consistency because you never need to learn any of the scary overlaps with knights and how to handle the bleed and the AoE damage mixed in with some of the other things, especially pulling a knight in with Suleiman in this first pull. And so how do we actually get here? That's the real question. So one, we pre-invis to skip these guys. If you had a rogue in your group, you could shroud, just as invis potting on 1 second, you're fine. Once you come in here, I have a note. Basically, you will hug this wall down here. This patrol is going down this way. This patrol is coming up this way. And so you just kind of sneak behind this patrol while it's going. And when it's, down far enough away, you can just run straight into this pole and grab all these 3 packs with Suleiman and tank him on the stairs. It's important you tank it on the left side of the stairs where my mouse is, because this patrol will come back and stop around here. And if you're over on the right side of the stairs, there's a chance that you do social aggro that pack. So this actually makes the first pull very safe. Actually, it's not even scary at all. Death Grip does make it very easy to avoid this pack social aggroing here, just so they can pull this sharpshooter in like this, and so that forces them to not jump through this pack. So something to be aware of, but you could get away with that with a knockback. And then here you're gonna have Elena come down, Emberlands, and you're just gonna kind of drag Emberlands around these packs. So we initially start with these 2. It's the caster packs. That's where we do our CC rotation, because there's only 1 caster in this first pull, which just keep kicks on. And then once this pack dies, we can start to group these guys up together with Emberlands, and again just kind of cleave them down before moving up the side here. We're going to be avoiding these patrols, guys, and then we're going to hug the left side here. And the important thing here is this pull initially has too many casters. Again, I put a lot of notes in all these routes, by the way, just to make it a little bit easier. But basically what we're going to do here is, as we're running by and grouping this pack, I'm going to throw a CC on this Conjurer. So there's now only 2 casters, the 1 Priest in this pull, which will have CDs for it, so it should die relatively quickly, as well as the mini boss herself. The one thing you want to be aware of course, is the light spawn and having a kick on the mini boss or prepared for the mini boss when this guy gets low and starts doing its healing. It's not the end of the world if you heal the mini boss. Obviously, it's a time loss, but if it does happen, you can just opt to drag the mini boss into this 3 pack after the fact. as well. So that saves you a little bit of time that you would have otherwise had to do this later on. But obviously, ideally, you don't want to heal anything. And so we tend to save a kick. We have our mage kick like early on the priest, and then they will save their second kick for the mini boss to lock out the mini boss when the light spawn starts getting to low HP. This is going to summon Tainer, do them all to you. We run up the side here. We pull these two packs initially with Tainer, do a CC rotation on them, get them down. This is a very dangerous pull because you have a lot of kicks here. And so having a good CC rotation, especially with Beam and Silent Sigil, can be very, very useful. A Paladin can probably do this as well, honestly. Warrior with Interrupting Shout as well. That'll all work on top of instead of the D8 Sigil, rather. One thing that a lot of people do actually is they do not kick the Cinder Blast. This is the tank stun. People are not kicking this. There is no other dispel. So what they're doing is they're letting this go off. That lets them use their kicks on other things. And then the healer is just instantly dispelling a tank. So that is a strategy a lot of people are doing. So you drag this guy here. He'll kill this stuff. Once these are all dead, then you can chain Tainer into these 3 mobs if you didn't already chain Amia into these 3 mobs. So it's kind of dependent. You can do this in either pull. And then we're just kind of weaving our way through these packs. Mind Soothe is very helpful to get through to the boss. And then here, we're going to our next Bloodlust pull. For Bloodlusting pull 1, you're going to likely Bloodlust this next pull. Some people are doing this room with all 4 packs, for example. Again, I've reduced the pack size for safety. So we're going 3 packs. We're going to the right side here. We're killing all this stuff with Bloodlust. From here, the pull, it looks like it's all 3 at once. It's not. It's just a bit weird because you're kind of chaining mobs. I put the note here again. Basically, you're going to go up, pull this pack on the right side. You're going to focus the Paladin down. Once the Paladin is dead and the casters are dead, you're going to take this Templar straight through to this pack here, and you're going to double pull again. This is basically just some time to recover offensive and defensive cooldowns, give your tank a bit of a breather as well, and then you can go straight back into having the, what is this, like a triple Paladin, double Paladin maybe pull on this side, and not just chaining this and having a ton of damage right after you did your big scary Bloodlust pull. So that's what we do. Again, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. You can make this first pull more dangerous and make the second pull more even more safe, but I prefer it this way for the vast majority of key levels. Straightforward here. Now, we haven't pulled a ton of count at the beginning of the dungeon, so we do have to pull a bunch of literally everything in this last boss room. And the big thing is just making sure you line up your lust with damage cooldowns onto Sir Braunpike. This is the guy that's going to brick a lot of keys, and so you want to make sure you are doing this pull as safely as possible. Only other thing to be aware of here is kind of this pull 11, which is the next most dangerous pull, which is kind of why there's a pull between them, where you have the double light spawn pull, then you have this pull, and then you have Sir Braunpike, just to kind of get your cooldowns in order. And again, just beware, double light spawn, you try and your best not to heal another light spawn with one of them dying early. If you can kill both of them at the same time, great. If they both started casting, then it's actually fine. But if there is going to be a health discrepancy, make sure you move them out in time. That is Priory, and that's kind of the coverage we're going to do. So that's, we talked about that dungeon for a pretty long time. Let's move on. Let's talk Meadery. And this is some of the more dangerous pulls. And again, right off the top here, I am opting to be safer. We are only doing a double muscle pull. You see a lot of groups trying this triple muscle pull off the top. I have opted not to do that. It's not required to get title. It is not, just objectively. So we're doing this pull here. Boom, double muscle in the corner. It's pretty standard pull. You get a recovery pull with Chewy. You do the other muscle after Chewy, and then you have some mobs here which you can take into boss. You can also take this pack into boss as well, which we leave sometimes. We'll pull these guys together, and then we'll pull these 3 guys into boss initially, and then you can drag these 4 guys into boss after the first intermission, just so you just have targets on boss for funnel. The only thing is you want to make sure whoever you bring onto boss, you want to kill them by the intermission or shortly after the boss has run away for the intermission, just because you don't want them running around causing havoc when that's happening. Now, something important that we do here that doesn't necessarily actually even work on lower key levels is we go right for a pull. And the reason we do this is not because it's faster, but it's because the next pull we're doing with Bloodlust over here on pull 7 is where we want to line it up. That pull, you need Bloodlust for that pull, to be very clear. It's a very, very dangerous pull. We're kind of on a timer with that pull to try and beat out the number of barrel spawns. And so if you don't have Bloodlust, it makes this pull much, much, much more dangerous. And so on a lot of key levels, even like we were doing like 14s, 15s, we were realizing even doing this pull on the right side was not letting us get Bloodlust back when we were Bloodlusting the first pull. And so we were having basically running into key level too low problems, which is something to be aware of. The key level may be too low to actually fit in this Bloodlust. If that is the case, you may want to take this a little bit slower and only like do a double pull on this pull 7 and add a pull. Because if you're being that fast anyways, it's kind of not the end of the world to go a little bit slower here. But ideally, you do this big pull, all CDs with Bloodlust over here, which is why we do this extra pull on this right side here, just to try and ensure that we're going to have Lust at a decent key level. In terms of after doing this, we go up this way, right? Standard pull here. We're grouping all this stuff together, cleaving it down. The big thing when you're ever tanking one of these hobgoblins is to aim it at a close wall so that all your specs that are like funneling off of it, like the mage specs, for example, can still cleave the entire pack around it, even when it goes off to charge into the wall. So tank all this pack close to a wall. This is a big CC rotation pack. Then you go into the skip here of these mobs. Basically, you have your meld guy go into this corner, pull it, everyone goes through. You do need to CC this mob with like a threat reduction CC, and then the meld guy jumps through, melds it off. The other way is if you have an evoker, the evoker can just stand up here, and they can sleepwalk this mob to this corner here, and the hobgoblins actually follow it. So sleepwalk will actually let you get past it as well without needing shadow meld if you have an evoker. And then I said big pull here. This is also a pull that I've reduced in size, so a lot of groups will pull this additional flavor scientist into this pull 7. If you do a metric ton of damage in Lust, I say this is probably worth pulling in, but again, it's still dangerous because this guy will spawn an additional barrel in this pull. And so I put a note here again. What I think is more consistent is to pull this guy into the pull after this, which pushes one of the barrel spawns out of this dangerous pull that already has like 3 barrel spawns, I believe, from these flavor scientists that exist here, and into the next pull, which has 0, I believe. So this will be just the 1. So consistency wise, I think this is much better to do. And also I think this hobgoblin is in the wrong pull. So there we go. This hobgoblin is going to be in this first Lust pull as well. So I think I prefer doing that. It's what I recommend. Again, some pulls are doing a bigger pull. I think this is safer, so that's why I recommend it. You do notably have this hobgoblin that is patrolling in the back of the room here, which you need to be aware of, which means that you basically need to play IPA kind of in this square here, and you do need to be aware when this guy is patrolling into this area, you want to make sure that your group is not near it. It's not too bad to play around, and that's why I did include it, but it is something to be aware of. We're going through again. This pack will be dead. It's a pretty standard pull here. This pull is a little bit less standard. It's much easier if you have a Death Knight in your group to grip these 2 B Wranglers in, but it's not the end of the world. And basically what happens to initially group this up is I'll throw a misery down on these 3 guys, and then I'll just wait for this to have a decent patrol, at most like 5 seconds of waiting. And then once the patrol is good where I can tag all 4 of these mobs at once, I'll step through the door, trigger the B spawns, and then tag these mobs, and then our DK will grip in the 2 B Wranglers. Biggest thing here is that the biggest priority kick is the Purveyor. The secondary kicks are the Wranglers. It's okay if a Wrangler gets off. It's actually not really a big deal. So just keep that in mind. You're really only care about the Purveyor kicks. Then we're jumping down here. We've got 2 Purveyors in this pack as well as a B Wrangler. You can maybe soothe this if you need to, but it's pretty far away. It's not really going to social having these guys go down. And then you just occasionally are pulling in B-Lits onto this boss. This is generally where a lot of people do their next Bloodlust, is on this boss at some point. But if you just don't have it on this boss, you can save it for last boss. Going up here, biggest tech for these yes men is to make sure that if you have a priest, you mind control one of them just before you kill the first one when they're not CC immune, and that one will never get upgraded, and you can kill it again at the end. That's the biggest tech to save some time on these mobs. And then we are going into the last boss. The only thing to note with the barrels, you always want to break barrels with the tank frontal, the red barrels with a dot. You never want to break them with the individual player circles, and the cadence is always 2 barrels, 2 red barrels with the first cone, 1 with the second, 1 with the third is how most people are doing it. Some people are doing 2, 1, 0, and they're letting the last one detonate with the raid damage, but either of those 2 cadences will work fine, 2, 1, 1 or 2, 1, 0. Then moving on, we have Darkflame Cleft. This is pretty standard, I would say, in terms of rooting with the changes to the first boss where you can no longer kill half the dungeon with minecarts. So big pull off the top. We do CC one of the Wick Lighters just so we have only 1 kick to worry about in this pack. Again, this Moleherd kick is not super important. So we just keep our kick rotation on the Wick Lighter. From there, we'll break the CC on the Wick Lighter, and we will go into this next pack with 2 Overseers, kind of cleaving this stuff down. Biggest thing is don't pull all of these laborers at once. Pull them kind of, slowly trickle them in, use them as funnel to kill these Overseers, because they will do a lot of tank damage too if you pull them all at once and you just get a ton of stacks. Other thing, note, we did not lust this first pull. Lust is saved for the boss fight, so don't lust early here. And basically just dragging these Overseers around. Focus one of them down initially, put all your damage into one, and then when that one dies, that's usually when you will drag the second Overseer like into this area over here to do that. Then you'll hug the left side here, grab the pack moles. You need to wait for this rank Overseer patrol to not be on top of this mole herd, something to be aware of. And you do need a threat reduction CC on this mole herd. So Imprison, Sap, Mind Suit, that all works. Just make sure you do that on this mole herd and pick up these moles and go straight into boss. Then we're jumping down here. Big spooky pull in this area. In terms of how this actually works, it is kind of a slow pull. So you kind of pull everything but this back corner initially. Depending on the number of kicks. If you have 4 kicks in your group, you can pull this right away with all this grouping, but it's also not a big deal. Just wait a little bit here and pull these guys later on when some of these guys have started to die, because you're still going to have these wandering candles that are pretty healthy. Biggest thing is we CC this Wick Lighter. Again, any CC works here. You just want to make sure to not break it. And then we don't want them in this pull essentially because it's too many kicks. So we've got the rest of this room when that happens. And then re-CC them before you leave. Do this next pull over here. This is very easy when you have a thing like an AoE silence from the sigils or from Prot Warrior Disrupting Shout, because you want to kind of line up all these things to kick them at once. And then around this time is when the CC will be breaking, and you basically will just pull this guy into boss. There's not much happening on this boss, so you just keep the kick rotation on this guy. Healer can dispel him whenever he casts. It's pretty straightforward to do and kind of free. Room after the boss. Pretty straightforward. Doing the classic skip where you go up this side, the right side, I guess, if you're coming into the room, jump up into the boss, do the boss fight. You want your lust on this boss fight because it's just, one of the hardest healer checks in the game. Some people have started swapping their Circe's circlet to be all healer gems on this boss fight, because the timer on this dungeon is still relatively free, so that is a potential tech to keep in mind to make your healer's life a little bit easier. You can swap to your full healer gem Circe's circlet for this whole key, of course, because you can't swap otherwise. That's something to keep in mind. And then you're going to the minecart area, where I'm opting to do the minecart area in 2 pulls. Obviously, some groups are doing this whole place in like 1 pull. Some people are doing it more. I think the 2 pulls is a pretty easy medium. Tank goes out, grabs a light, gets all these mobs, goes back to the cart. People kick these shuffling horrors when they come in. Do the 2 pulls. Cart will move pretty quickly. It's pretty straightforward. And then you go into this last area where you do need 4 of these corridor creeper guys. So there are 2 sleepers, 1 up here and 1 down here, which don't put the stacking dot on your tank. So that actually lets you, if you're pressed for time or just want to, pull all of these mobs onto the boss. So you can do that. You can do all of these mobs on the boss. There's just going to be 2 guys stacking the dot on the tank, and these 2 guys are kind of irrelevant. So once these little skittering darkness guys die, you can just walk straight into boss with 4 of these guys, and it's actually not too scary. There's not a ton happening to the tank anyways on that boss fight. But that is it for Darkflame Clef. Pretty straightforward there. Going into Rookery, we're right off the top. You basically have a bigger pull at the beginning, because you basically are going to skip stuff at the end using a parasol toy or like a slow fall or type thing later on in the dungeon. So one of those more parasol techs. So make sure you get that from the Venthyr area in Shadowlands. So big lust pull off the top here. Very standard second area. So people pull this in a much more dangerous way. There is a way to clear this area in 3 pulls instead of 5. Much more dangerous. Totally not needed for title routes. Absolutely unnecessary. If you want to, sure, you can do it. You don't need to do any of that. You can literally pull this. This is exactly the pull cadence in my Keystone Legend route. You're allowed to do this in title level keys. You don't need to do anything crazy in this room. That is the biggest downfall of people trying to do some crazy stuff in this room. You don't need to worry about it. Just be clean. You're double pulling, double pulling, double pulling, double pulling. You don't need to do anything crazy. You don't need to pull trash on a boss. You don't need to do triple pulls. You can do it just like this and you will get title level keys. Then we're going down. We're doing a big pull immediately on jumping down here. There is a couple casters, so be aware of that. Curse of spells can be useful in this area. We're doing our recovery pull here on pull 8. Then we are doing a skip here. There's a couple ways to skip. So you can actually invis or shroud and hug this wall, and it is enough. This guy does have true sight and is CC immune, and so what we do is I throw down a misery to CC these two crushers. I jump in the corner and tank this guy in the far corner. The rest of the group runs by. I meld it off. That's how we do it. And this goes straight into our Bloodlust pull here. Very dangerous pull. Definitely most dangerous pull of the dungeon, and one of the more dangerous pulls in the season because of the double diffusers and the double casters. So, you know, again, CC rotation is nice to prevent these kicks from going off, and you want to focus down a diffuser quickly to have it die and just make that pull significantly easier. Standard pulls at the end here, this one, and then the skip comes in where you basically need to jump down. I think it's like around here because you want to jump towards this corner of the square, I believe, which will get you over here towards this platform, which is where you want to land. And again, it's parasols, so you can glide, slow fall, lots of stuff to get over here. And this lets you skip all this beginning stuff, this Rockman, a couple jumpers, all these guys over here, and you can just do the pulls like this. In terms of this mob, you do want to make sure you are killing the civilians before you chain into the Void Stone, because this guy does cast his empowerment ability quite early, the Void Extraction, and if all of these little guys are alive, he's going to do a metric ton of damage, so you want to make sure these are dead before you chain into this guy. They have like almost no health, so it's not a big deal. And then same deal, just going around the room here, and then you have the final boss. Next up, Floodgate, another dungeon that has a ton of route variation similar to Priory. Now the tech where you could tank or have range AFK up here, I believe is gone. And so we are no longer clearing all this stuff up here. So instead we go into this pretty large pull on the right side with our first Bloodlust. And the goal of this route is to actually line up Bloodlust onto as many bosses as possible that are relevant. And so we actually, you can see, are going dynamic duo first because we want to get Lust onto Big Mama with the goal of reducing the number of phases on Big Mama by 1 by having Lust and cooldowns in one of the burns. So that is the goal of this route, and it will also hopefully let you have Bloodlust later on into Swamp Face, and then as well later on Giesel Gigazap. So that's why the pathing of this route is kind of what it is. So big pull off the top here. You can make this patrol easier to avoid by CCing this sniper 11, which is the one, I guess, at the front right side of the patrol. That is the one that controls the patrol. So you CC that one with like any CC, and as long as you don't run by the pack, you're good. So that lets us group this into this first pull with all this stuff. Big pull. Second pull here, you kind of do this one a little bit slower. You get this pack, and this pack with the crabs initially, and then as you're ready, you kind of add the secondary surveyor pack and the loader bots into this pull. And then again, we're going all the way towards the Diamond Duo. So this is an 8 diver pull. They have this tech where they never will sync up their harpoons. So you can actually just deal with this with like 3 to 4 kicks and some stops. You just kick one diver at a time. You just need to be ready to assign who is kicking next, not what mark to kick, because you don't know which diver is going to start casting next. Just one thing, you want to make sure you have a range kick ready to kick whoever starts casting initially when you're grouping the pack, because usually one cast will start while you're grouping all these divers onto this architect. Then we're hopping up the stairs here. Mind Soothe makes this very easy to skip. I think you need 1 threat reduction CC on the close mob or Mind Soothe to make it like super consistent. Then we're doing the double shredder pull here. Honestly, it hasn't been too scary. Just make sure your tanks are pointing the mobs away. People are quickly moving when the saw blades come out, and you have kicks very quickly on the 2 surveyors. Same with this pull over here. Always want to assign kicks to these surveyors and this pull over here, and just instantly kick that ability. Duo, and then we're running all the way straight to the boss. You basically do duo straight into Big Mama, again with the goal of lining up your Bloodlust on CD to be on the first damage amp of the fight, which will then allow you to lust on CD like halfway through Swamp Face. So that's the goal. So we're basically coming in here waiting for this patrol to leave, like soothing or miserying and like caging one of these guys and walking up the stairs. And then we're doing these guys immediately. Again, aiming on these mecha drones. I think one of the techs people have seen is that these mecha drones, they always charge twice back to back. And so what you kind of want to do is if you're taking the boss on one side, like on this side where my mouse is, you kind of want to try and bait the mecha drone's first charge to be towards this one, which is a far charge, and then they'll immediately charge back to the boss, and that's when they kind of pause for a second. So if that happens, then they're pausing next to the boss, as opposed to the other way, where if you charge them into this wall and then they charge along over here, they're AFK off the boss. So that is a little tip in terms of baiting these mecha drones. You want to bait them far away from you with the first charge so that their second charge comes back to the boss. A couple mobs you're going to pull here, both these guys and these guys. Be careful. It is actually quite easy. If you tag these mobs in the wrong spot, they can social this blood warper. It's very scary. You want to be near the wall here, kind of like where my cursor is, relatively close to the wall where they come from and relatively close to the stairs. It's a little finicky. It's going to take some practice. And if you're really worried about it, you can like soothe these mobs and tag these guys and have them run this way instead. If you stand over here to force them to run over here instead of through the blood warper. And worst case, if these guys pull, you have two inspectors instead of a blood warper who's going to absolutely own you. So little thing you can do if you're having issues with getting these soldiers to run this way without tagging the blood warper. Then immediately we go into this pull. The reason we do this is because we use our CC rotation heavily on this pull and not so much on this pull, and we'd like them to recover for our pull 9, and so we do that. One thing is this is kind of, it requires death grips almost. Potentially you could do this with a couple knocks. Basically we group up everything here on top of the snipers and then we grip these two demolitionists in. If you had a couple knocks, potentially what you could do is you could knock these guys towards these demolitionists and hopefully get like a grip, like a mass grip or a chains or something to group everything up. But much easier if you have two death grips to bring these demolitionists in, and then we can do our mass grip and all that other stuff to have everything in a nice even stack here. Then we're going up the stairs, basically tag all these mobs together and go all the way up. We ignore the first loader bot cast. They just kind of spin down here on the stairs. We use stuns on the second one. This is, I believe, the only blood warper in the entire route. Yeah, one blood warper route. Then we're using the thing to go immediately down into this pull 9 here and get a couple crabs onto them. Again, similar to the pull before the second boss in Darkflame. CC them. Stop the damage events, and then you can use one singular like disrupting shout, silent sigil to get as many of the interrupts as possible at once. Going to the boss, you need a couple more crabs. You can kind of do these whenever. If you want to do them earlier, you can. Like if you want to do them with this pull, I guess technically you could. If you want to do them with pull 9, you could as well. And now we're going down. We are doing a bubble skip. We are also doing 0 jump starters. These guys are kind of spooky. It's okay to do 1 jump starter. Like if you want to do this pull, I think it's okay, but I think a lot of these pulls are probably something you don't want to do. In terms of how to skip bubbles, groups here, you let the bubbles spawn. Tank is dragging bubbles over to here. And then just before the frontal cast, that's when the group can run with speed. And you need to go pretty far, like all the way up to this guy. So having a CC ready, like a fear or something like that on these mobs, and just having everyone run up to them and then stop next to them until the tank is there, good idea. That will make this a lot more consistent. Pulling a bunch of mobs in this side architect, avoid these 2 electricians over here. This is just generally, again, a safer pull than doing this stuff with the jump starter, because you have the 2 electricians still, no matter what, but it's not comboed with the jump starter damage, and so it just makes this pull a lot safer. If you don't really have the capability or are scared about doing the skip on this 3-pack, you can do this stuff into the 3-pack instead, but this is safer, in my opinion. In terms of how to do that, you need threat reduction CC on these 2 guys, and then you just jump into the cubby on the side here. For this, it's similar. You just have your tank go into one of these 2 cubbies, pull both mobs over, and then everyone else runs through the side here, jumps down, tank mouths off. One thing is these guys will pulse for damage. They will hit the entire party even if they're not in combat. So you may want to pre-defensive when you're doing this skip just to make sure people survive, like mass barrier, pre-put shields on people, just something to pre-defensive essentially, so you don't die to like 2 ticks of the group damage from these guys when they're putting it out once they're pulled by your tank. Now we get to Motherlode. Again, this is probably the dungeon that has the most route variation out of anything in the pool. There is like 1,000 different ways to actually do this dungeon. I am going to recommend a way here where you're doing a lust pull off the top. Again, a lot of people skip these mobs. I'm just going to say do it. This is a 0 peacekeeper route for reference. So we are going to pull all the stuff basically kind of towards this G4 pack. It's kind of where you're going to group it all up. AoE CCs, make sure you don't let any of the refreshment vendors or hired assassin kicks go off, and you don't let these hired assassins channel for very long, doing all this stuff together with Bloodlust, going around the house here to skip these guys, jumping over the wall, running around, lots of running, and basically what this does is it gets your CDs back. And so you think, oh, CDs going into this boss, that's great. That is not true. This boss has a damage amp like 30 seconds into the boss fight or 20 seconds, whatever it is. So you actually don't want your CDs available on pull. And so what we will do is we'll do a trash pull before the boss. Now, in terms of how to get through this area, basically this pack needs to either be soothed or miseried. And then this pack, tank grabs it, goes into the right side. Hunter can also do it with turtle. They can turtle and grab this and go to the right side. Rest of the party goes to the left side. They feign it off or meld it off. And then you go in through to do this pull too. And then you go into the boss with your cooldowns, preferably on cooldown, for another 20 to 30 seconds, which allows you to time them with the damage amps on the boss fight. Then going in second pull here, we're going to be doing again a lot of your CCs are going to be spent on this pull specifically because there's a lot of Earth Shapers in it. I think there's 3, so you're going to be doing your CC combination on this pack. Then next pull, we are going to be adding this drill into it, but we don't have potentially the resources to keep a CC rotation on this pull because we spent them all in the previous pull. And so we will CC this Earth Shaper to remove its kick entirely, and then we will pull this drill, the sapper, into the 3 Stone Furies. And the key with these Stone Furies is to ignore their tectonic barrier. Do not kick it. Never waste a kick. This shield is tiny. It's a little baby shield. You don't need to worry about it. Instead, you assign 1 kick to each quake, which means this pull requires 3 kicks, which I think pretty much every group fields 3 regular kicks. And so very easy pull, just 1 person per Stone Fury. You have the drill, of course. A note on the drills is the circles when they spawn them are all, I believe, random area, except 1 always spawns on the tank with every single tick. So the tank needs to be aware of this. Don't be running around placing all these puddles that are not stacked whatsoever. You can put 2 in one spot, or at the very least, you can kind of put 1 half on another to conserve space. So make sure you're doing that, and that allows you to rotate around these mobs without losing melee uptime. And then you're going into this boss. This already has, or this mini boss, sorry, with 2 Earth Shapers, and then our third guy, which we mind control, or you can death grip into the pack. And because there's 2 Earth Shapers, we were already forced to do a CC rotation on this pack. So adding the third Earth Shaper actually changes nothing for how this pack works, which is why we end up doing that. And this goes into Azarok, which is our next Bloodlust here. And then we have some chiller pulls in this area, only a couple pulls. Weapons testers are always the priority in this area. They're actually the most dangerous. If you're targeted by Echo Blade, that's what you're scared of dying to, so be aware of that. Poison dispels are obviously useful, and we just kind of chain around this mastermind to these packs. Again, focusing the weapon tester. He'll die with pull 9, essentially, is the goal. Just again, focus the weapon tester, don't pull 2 weapon testers at once. Then you have the pull 10 here, pretty straightforward. And then you get into the Rixa, where we do end up pulling 2 war machines onto this boss in total. So how this works is basically the whole party will stay here. I will tag this war machine, wait for him to start his first channel of charge shot. And as soon as that happens, we will go into the boss. The goal is, if you're not in combat with this mob, you will not be ticked by that first charge shot. What happens like 5 seconds after you pull the mob, so you can avoid the first charge shot on this mob. Very useful. Go straight in the boss. Your priority when you're doing this is always the Ventrico War Machine. Do not worry about hitting the boss. The boss really only does tank damage, so the tank can just kind of survive it. You're killing the War Machine. When this guy dies and you're over in this area of the platform, you can tag this next War Machine. We will also spam CC on the specialist. So if you have a polymorph, as soon as this guy's in range, you want to polymorph it. Imprison if you can. Just whatever CC you have available to you, Hex. CC this specialist when he's like in the water here, because you again want to just focus ideally on only having the War Machine. You don't want to also deal with the circles on top of the ground effects on the boss already, on top of mines you have to dodge. So 1 War Machine, 1 mob really at a time. Once the second War Machine starts to die, then this guy can be added, and then you can just focus the boss honestly instead of this last specialist and get that down. Lots of count on the boss. Then we're doing a couple pulls up here. We're pulling all these specialists onto the middle war machine and pulling it back a little bit here. You can have your tank go first to get all these mines forced on the tank, which is quite useful if the group stays back a little bit initially. And then we're doing our lust pull here with the double war machine at the end. Some people don't do a double war machine. They just do another single war machine and they pull more count in this area. That's something that you can do. Honestly, the lust is not super value on this last boss in my opinion, and so just having this pretty high efficiency pull with bloodlust, this one is a little bit more dangerous, but honestly I think it's worthwhile, and you can kind of stack all your defensives on this pull, and you can also again focus one war machine down, kill it ASAP, and that makes the pull infinitely easier. And then you got the last boss. Safe spot does exist on one of the corners of the grates. If you soon come in the grate immediately on your left, you can stand on the corner of that one. It's a safe spot. Just make sure you're pointing the frontal 180 degrees away from the safe spot, and that will actually make it so that you never have a bad overlap with the frontal, forcing people to move out of the safe spot when the gunfire is happening. It'll happen shortly after, so people can run away from the frontal and run back to the safe spot, but it will never exactly overlap where the frontal is on the safe spot when the circles come out. So that's the little tip for that one. Moving on, Theater of Pain. This is a pretty straightforward dungeon. Classic first pull. CC the mobs, get by, take the Bloodhorn into the pack. We are going into Zav's Wing initially, pulling this stuff into the first mini-boss. Now, there are some people that are skipping this second mini-boss and instead playing this pack. You can do either. I don't think it's like a huge deal either way. We're going to just play the mini-boss here and skip this pack. How do we skip this pack, you say? Well, we do it with Demon Hunter pulling this pack to the side, everyone else running through, doing this classic skip of this mini boss where they wait and they speed boost and run up together while the RP is happening. And then I'll meld the pack off when I'm over here, and then I'll get pre-script back onto the boss platform. Now, if you don't have the ability to do that, then it is much better to skip the second mini boss and play this pack instead, because again, you can skip this second mini boss the same way you skip the third. You just wait before the point of no return where the RP starts, speed boost, run through, RP is happening, you just pull this pack and you're safe from aggro here. So if you don't have like a priest plus a meld to skip this pack, you can just pull this mini boss or skip this mini boss instead, rather. We're going through here. Usually Lust for us is going to be coming up late on Zav and the routes that we've done, or after Zav. And so we're going straight into this pull, which is going to be our Bloodlust pull in the Gore Chop Wing. A nice big pull here. Want to get everything grouped, be aware of the charges. Need some kicks on all these mobs. Stop CCs potentially. Running through here, avoiding these guys. Again, double pull here. You can basically kill this pack or kill the small guys in this pack, the Sludge Spewer. Once this guy's dead, then you can chain into this pack. Then you pull this guy into boss. Same deal this area, pretty standard pulls. All the little mobs on the Porter Guardian. We're going left and left on this in this route. So left, get the routes here. The mobs here, rather, going here. This is our big scary pull, something to be aware of here. Lust usually is not up for this. Lust usually comes up in pull 11 potentially, unless you're going too fast, key level too low, kind of like Cinderbrew. So beware, you may need to just not lust your third lust. It is what it is. For this one, again, kind of nice to have death grips. We death grip the double Magasin, purge their shield, and we do a CC combo on the mobs here, which will prevent the spears from going off. They usually die like in even like a druid beam and a couple CCs, they're just dead already, which is very nice. And then you just have kicks on the big cast of the two soul binders, and that's all that's super relevant. This similar here, except there's no of these bone maguses to actually worry about. Just pull these guys in. May or may not have the ability to do the full CC rotation on these guys, but luckily there is only really 2 casters in the soul binders, and so that's who you need to be focusing on. Make sure you have 1 kick assigned to each of the volleys, and then any extra kicks just go into the bolts here, and then just any stops you have on these shackled souls. Don't worry about kicking these dark speakers. Last pull, Kultharok, and then we're just going into last boss somewhere over here with the last 3 pack during the RP. Pretty straightforward, not a ton of tech in Theater of Pain, and honestly, not even a ton of tech in Workshop either. Classic first pull, you're doing everything all together. We are going to be doing one thing a little bit differently. We are going to be skipping this first drill, and so how you do this is you have anyone with meld, basically pull it into the back corner here. Everyone else can hug right. And again, kind of similar to the bubble skip, where if your tank is the one doing the waste processing unit and pulling it away, you need to make sure that you use a CC on this first gunk, because you are going to be running into range of it. And obviously, if your tank's not there, that's bad. So CC this gunk, tank runs away, melds, does this first pull here, where you can go all the way to this first drill. You're not going to be pulling it, of course, because this is going to be a one drill route, only pulling this one drill and this one pull. And you're obviously, you should have all your damage up. You can have a little time setting up this pull, and you're doing all this big pull, waiting for this drill to patrol into the corner. Then you run through, doing 4 dogs with the first gunk. You're allowed to spend your dwarves, your defensives, your master spells, revivals here, because the next dog pull is going to be after the boss, so that it can recover and you can do it again. To do that, the boss does need to be pulled over to this area where you killed these dogs, so just keep that in mind. And you do have less space to play the boss because you do have these 2 dogs, especially right here, so be aware of that. Dog pull after, again, defensives, master spells, all that stuff should be back. Again, pretty standard pull, 1-1-1, nothing really to talk about there. This is our next Bloodlust pull. After the first pull of the dungeon, you're pulling all these guys onto Spark Flux, and you're lusting. Something some people do is they do CC this defender because they don't want a shield generator going down on the boss during their bloodlust. So some people will mind control it. Some people will just CC it up here and leave it out of the fight entirely, and they can mind control it later. Or if they don't have a priest that just can't mind control it, they'll kill him after in the fight. But mind controlling this guy is beneficial specifically for this pull here. Very, very high throughput requirement pull because of the spider tanks. And so having the defender on your side dropping shields in this pull is quite useful. Also, if you have it on the boss, you can tank some of the gears. Not that you should, but you can tank some of the gears if you have them on the boss fight. But the biggest thing is just not inting your damage by having a shield go down at the worst time during your bloodlust. So that's why that happens. And then again, spider tank pull, focus the back one. That's what triggers the RP. Very dangerous pull. You want to have damage. You want to have defensives ready. You want to be good with your defensive rotation. Pretty standard pull here with just a couple Mark 3s in this pack here. And then we're going to be skipping this. We just do a, again, I misery this pack, tag these guys, pull them into the corner, and then I'll jump and meld it off. But, you know, you can do this in a couple ways. Some people are just lock gating, skipping this pack, or soothing and skipping this pack and pulling these 3 guys like into boss after killing one of the Mark 3s. Lots of things that you could do. I just recommend skipping this stuff entirely. But there we have it, guys. A little bit of a long video, but like I said, we're going pretty in depth on all 8 dungeons. Hopefully this helps you in your title push for season 2. And if you learned something, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like it, including a ton of PTR coverage once season 3 gets thrown onto those servers. Now remember, if you have any questions, please leave those down in the comments below. I do my best to answer every single one of them. So if something wasn't clear, let me know and I will do my best to make that more clear. Otherwise, shout out to all my amazing Patreons for their continued support, and I'll see everyone in the next video.